There's no need for that. I don't need reminding that I'm hurtling towards my 50s.
Just get like a gold pen or something and just add a number on it each year.
Can I just show you this behind me? Can you see that sign? Right, this is what I'm up against. I'll put this in the camera here. Right. My lady friend, your mate as well, stuck this behind me. Well, she tried to distract me by saying, "Who's that in the garden?" And then when I turned around as I was setting up, she put that behind me. That's the level of maturity I'm dealing with in this house. And then she giggled to herself. I know, you can't even read it anyway, and I caught her doing it. And then she giggled to herself at how funny she was. I smell. And it's quite hurtful, that, because I do.
Yeah. How are you keeping, brother? You well?
I'm good, mate. I tell you what, right? I had a right laugh on that show of yours last night.
Did you enjoy it, yeah?
Yeah, it was good, mate. It was good. Yeah, I'm always a bit wary, over the phone, even though we're mates, and I've spoke to Jay Sky a couple of times years ago when I was at K. I know he's proper sound, but sometimes on the phone it's difficult, innit? Especially when because obviously you're hosting and you don't know how long you've got or what what the conversation's gonna go. But it was just like chatting. I know it's chatting to you, it's chatting to a mate, but it just felt like a few mates chatting, in it, and it wasn't too serious as well. Because when I saw the subjects, I was like, vaccines,
That's what I thought when the producer texted me and said, should we discuss vaccines? And I thought, okay, this is probably, on a week where I've been told by the BBC I've got to be impartial on nearly everything. We'll just talk about vaccines. But as long as I think the thing is I'm just the ref, so as long as I just don't have the sort of the views and you get to say your point, you can be as strong as you want as long as you're not dropping C-bombs and stuff. So no, it was good, mate. Good laugh. Do you want to tell I didn't get to ask on the show last night for anyone who doesn't listen to my show. I'm sure you should, many of you don't. We were talking about superstitions and Jay's missus as well as putting I Smell behind him on his podcast, put on social media that he does this strange thing whenever he sees a magpie. Over to you, Jay Motty.
Right. It's I don't know what she's put on Twitter, actually, because I've got a few different things that I do when I see a magpie.
Like clicking and doing your teeth.
Yeah, click. No, I used to have this thing, right? I don't know where it came from. I think my granddad or someone, God rest him, give it me. And it was about touching something that's black and white and red, right? When you see a magpie. So I used to touch my gums and me beard or whatever, or me eyebrow, right? I know. So this is why I had to quit drugs, because I'm screwed without them. And then my teeth, which is probably not the whitest they've been in a long time. But then because of COVID and I was out running, I can't keep doing that. You can't keep putting your hands in your mouth or whatever. So I just switched to clicking my fingers instead.
You could have just stopped.
No, I had to do something. I felt like I couldn't just stop. I had to sort of make a switch. So I thought, if I just click my fingers like, hey, when I see him, I've done something to get rid of the bad luck. I don't even know, mate. Honestly, I don't know what I'm on about. It's just.
Oh man!
I remember, right? I met this lad. This is a tangent. This reminds me of this, and he used to take a lot of drugs. And once, we may well have been under the influence. He told me that there was. This is so bad. I can't believe I'm saying this on a podcast and to you. I can't even tell I'm telling you because you're going to ring me for this. He told me, right, that the police had robotic pigeons, right, with cameras in them. Like remote control pigeons. That flew around, like filming people and sending like the video back to base, right? And he was like, "You've got these pigeons, right? You've got them, like they look just like normal pigeons, but they've got cameras in them. They're like robotic." I was like, "Mate, even I was like, come on, man, that's not happening." But then I remember, right, once years later, looking at this pigeon, thinking, "I'm sure that's the same pigeon I saw this morning."
He's following me.
Why has it got a plug coming out of its ass?
I know. I mean, I'm not as bad as getting paranoid over fucking pigeons following me around. But whenever I see a white van, doing the BT stuff, like putting up phone cables, I always think they're tapping my line. With no reason to be paranoid in the slightest. But if I see a man up a ladder down the street, he's definitely tapping my line. Or if there's a new van that turns up down the street, it's been there for a couple of days, wiretap.
That's what I wouldn't mind. Most of your thoughts are online anyway. They're either on the podcast, on a radio show, or on social media. You're not exactly like me. You're not shy in sharing what you think about things. So it'd just be a waste of a wiretap, really, wouldn't it? It's like, mate, you may as well not bother. You won't ask me. Just follow me on Twitter. Got no filter.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Hidden in plain sight. I'm Scotty. That's Motty. Welcome back to another week's episode of the Scotty and Motty Show. How are you keeping out there in the world? Second week of lockdown. It seems like it's been harder than the first with the absolute wank weather out there. And Jay, you had to keep your little ones inside as well, haven't you? Even more so.
Yeah, mate. We had the domino effect. We had them. The first one was. I'll probably get this asked about face in the order. I think it was my youngest. At first got told she couldn't go back to nursery for 2 weeks, because someone in her bubble at the school had tested positive. So the whole bubble, the class or whatever, is locked down. So we're told she couldn't go in, but her brother and sister could. However that works, whatever. And then I think it was about a day later, my eldest daughter, she got told that someone in her bubble had tested positive, so she can't go in for 2 weeks. And then the day after that, literally the day after, my son, someone in his bubble or his class, I don't know if the bubble and the class are the same thing, I'm not sure, tested positive. So all three of them now have got at least 2 weeks. It's slightly staggered, but more or less 2 weeks apiece, or collectively, sorry. So they're off back at home, lockdown, and we've moved since last lockdown. We're in a bigger house, but I think that in many ways it's not worse, but it might be sort of. It just feels like a lot's going on for them. Do you know what I mean? Because they're in a new house,
changes.
Just started, they've just gone back to school, and then when they was getting to a semblance of normality, of back in school, this is our house now. Then boom, you're in lockdown. So yeah, they've been a bit, as you'd expect, a little bit rambunctious, but we're all right. How's things for you, mate? Anyway.
Yeah, good cheers, but I couldn't get to sleep after my my show last night. And when you start get a train of thought and it leads you down rabbit holes, pretty much like this show, to be honest. We'll just start talking about one topic and it goes on to another. So I was thinking about, they were talking about Black Panther 2 and the casting of it, weren't they? So obviously they're not going to digitally remake the lead character. Sorry, his name escapes me. Chadwick
Boseman, yeah.
They're obviously not going to digitally remake them because that would be a horrendous idea. So I think they're going to give it a female lead who's going to be the Black Panther in the new one. So then from there, I was thinking about the Cleopatra that's coming out, and everyone's kicking off saying that Cleopatra was black, and then it's an Israeli woman who's playing her, and then other people saying Cleopatra is Egyptian. So from there, I started thinking about who would be if you had a black Hitler. And I lay there for about 3 hours thinking if you're going to
Didn't see that one coming, if I'm being honest. Didn't see. Not very often you surprise me, but that was a bit of a.
And I'm laying there, honestly, for about a few hours, just in the dark, thinking if they were going to completely cast against type and they put a black person in as Adolf Hitler, who would it be? And I thought Forrest Whitaker, but he's probably too old because I'm not too sure how old Adolf was.
I don't know. I think Adolf was about was he 50 odd or 55 when he died?
Yeah,
he had a birthday, didn't he, just before he died? So hang on a minute. Let's have a little. Do you know what I mean? Let's have a little Google. Adolf Hitler. How old was he when he died? Oh my.
56 or maybe
56. Sorry, yeah. I think he just turned 56 when he just before he died, 10 days before he died. So how old's Forrest Whitaker? I tell you what, I did not expect to be doing this tonight. Forrest Whitaker's 59. So.
Yeah,
he could carry it off. He could carry it. Well, it depends on when you say to play him. What era is he playing him? Is his downfall? The last days in his bunker? We've all seen the memes
No, I don't know. I'd have probably gone for the golden age.
The golden age of Hitler. I think we'll tread carefully when we call what we describe it as here. Some people may argue that there wasn't a golden age of Hitler, and they'd be pretty much right. But
I don't know one thing. You know what I mean? When this podcast
will not be titled "The Golden Age of Adolf Hitler," and nor will the film. I don't care who plays it. Hitler, the golden years. Just before he got in with that crowd and all things went a bit Pete Song. No, you're thinking of like the times when he as a
the Ascendants.
Yeah, the Ascendants. Like, you got me out there because I was going to say I can't say when he was doing well because he was always horrible and evil. But yeah, when he was ascending to power. So you're looking at someone in the sort of 30s, late 30s, 40s.
Yeah,
weird, isn't it? Because your mate played him. I say your mate, one of your actors that you like, Robert Carlyle, played him, didn't he? In
Downfall, was it called?
No. Downfall was Bruno Ganz when he was in the bunker. Robert Carlyle played him in like a television miniseries, and it was during the time of Mein Kampf, so he was quite young at that time. Robert Carlyle was probably a little bit older than Hitler would have been. I think it was sort of early 20s, or no, late 20s, sorry. And I like Robert Carlyle, but I don't know, he was all right in it. It was good, but it's weird because you're so used to seeing that image of Hitler. I think one of the reasons that like certain people have carried him off is because they look like him, But if you just completely recast him, then yeah, why not? Forrest Whitaker's a very good actor, Academy Award winner, played Idi Amin.
Obviously, I was going to say, he looks a little bit more like Idi Amin.
More like Idi Amin. But he's played one dictator and won an Oscar for it. Maybe he could add another one to his another string to his bow.
That would really piss off people because when they were also talking about, they should have like a Chinese James Bond, but can you imagine Twitter outrage if they cast like a black Hitler?
That's the thing, innit? How do you moan about that, like, without exposing yourself as just a proper Nazi? You can't, can you? You've just got to lay your cards on the table and say, you know what? I am proper far right. I am a National Socialist. I'm not having this. This is taking the piss out of me. Because you can't sort of go, well, I'm not a Nazi, but...
That'd be hilarious. Can you imagine all the far right that you piss off by doing that film? That'd be brilliant. That'd be absolutely amazing.
Get a black woman, preferably a black gay woman, to play Hitler.
Queen Latifah.
Well, we're 12 minutes in and we've already cast Queen Latifah as Hitler.
You show me another podcast where they managed to do that.
I'm sure Queen Latifah's agent's watching thinking, you know what? That's the role she was born to play.
Is Queen Latifah gay? Because
I don't know. Even regardless of that, I'm sure that if you cast Queen Latifah or any non-white person, then the Hitler lovers are going to lose their mind. Whether Queen Latifah or Forrest Whitaker would want to take the role remains to be seen.
Oh, that'd be a brave old actor, that wouldn't it?
Imagine pitching that to the studio.
Oh, I've got an idea. Alternative history.
Right, I've got an idea. Story of Hitler, his ascendancy. Don't know if that's box office. Hear me out. There's a twist. When you think of Hitler, who do you think of? You think of Bruno Ganz, you think of Robert Carlyle, you think of those type of people. No, forget that. Queen Latifah. We give it a hip. We give it a hip hop soundtrack.
Get Ja Rule on there. Can you imagine the studio execs dragging you out and you're screaming, "Boy, it was his golden year."
Don't be nicking this idea. Want to take it to another studio?
Oh, fucking
yeah. Just pull that.
So that's what I'm doing.
Well, if you need any help with the working on the treatment, give me a shout.
Somebody should make that film, and that really nicely ties in. It really doesn't to Marcus Rashford in the Daily Mail, a black man in a Nazi newspaper. So, what have you thought about the Daily Mail's smear campaign against Marcus Rashford today? They came out with the headline that was, "What a result campaigning Marcus Rashford spends £2 million on houses." And this felt like it was always coming, and I'm not too sure. I mean, I don't want to get Ian Brown tinfoil hat on, but a few people were saying that this was always in the pipeline after the government had sort of backed down again towards his Feeding the Hungry campaign.
100%. I think loads of people have called this, and the way it was going to start was with something like this. And the problem that for starters, there's several segments to it. One, there's a lot of anger from the right, from even members of the government and what Marcus has done. Don't forget, they didn't want to back down. They didn't want him to do this. He did it anyway. He made it work. They U-turned, and when they didn't U-turn for the second time, the country got behind him and more or less forced their hand, and he's still not stopped. He still wants more, and rightly so. It's not for him. It's for the people he's trying to help. So there's a lot of people in the government and their friends and their allies in the right-wing media. Don't forget as well, you've got, I think Sarah Vine writes for the Mail. I know she didn't write this article. Michael Gove's wife. There's connections throughout the government with the Daily Mail. And you thought there was going to be this sort of campaign against him where they would come up with stories. Now, the problem they've got with Marcus Rashford is he's almost like a Boy Scout. If you're looking for someone to dig up dirt on, then good luck with that. You're going to need a massive shovel because there isn't any. I mean, the guy just lives and breathes to play football and help others and look after his family. Now, what's the angle you're going to go down there? Oh, Marcus Rashford plays football. That's been done. We all know that. Marcus Rashford, what? Loves his mum. Not really an angle there. Oh, wait a minute. Marcus Rashford's got money and used some of that money to invest in property to provide for his family. Let's try and twist that into he spent millions of pounds on property. That's the sort of stuff that you could have sort of predicted. I think me and you predicted it. Everyone I know who sort of understands this stuff predicted it. People were quoted like Peter Reid predicted it on Twitter. A few of the lads I know, I think Howson predicted it and others, McCullough. We just knew. We knew this was going to happen. And what's happened is they've done it, and it's almost like the first sort of shot across the bows or whatever. And the reaction has been sort of overwhelmingly negative towards the Daily Mail.
Yeah.
You've had the usual suspects in sort of footballing world, like Gary Lineker, people like that, speaking out against it. I saw Dan Walker from the Beeb tweeting out against it. Lots of United fans as well. Lots of England fans. Lots of even Liverpool fans get this. They're like, you know what? We can see what this is, and you can fuck off. Now, what happened with Raheem Sterling when the Daily Mail did this? It went on for years. Until eventually, I think the court of public opinion almost became so against it that they had to change tact. And I think this has happened already with Marcus. I think that there's already been such an outcry that people have seen right through it. He's obviously tweeted about it himself, saying that he shouldn't have to address this sort of thing, but he's going to or whatever. So I think he said, I'm just going to point out, that I've invested in this property for my family and for their future. I mean, rightly so. That's a sensible thing for a young lad to do. Also, I think he asked for the campaign to be kept out. It's got nothing to do with the campaign because the insinuation here is this guy's trying to raise money for all these people that are struggling, but he's got lots of money. And he's also been out with Fair Share delivering food packages. He's also donated lots of his own money towards charity and towards his campaign. He's also donated put lots of his time into this campaign and his energy. And he doesn't need to do any of this. He's one of the most famous footballers in the world. He's Marcus Rashford. He plays for Manchester United. He plays for England. He's a starter for both. So he doesn't need to do this. He's doing it because he gives a shit. And they're trying to bring him down. And you know what? We ain't having it. Whether you're a United fan, Liverpool fan, City fan, it doesn't matter. We're not having it. And I think we've seen that already today. And you know what? Fucking bring it on. Bring on the next Marcus Rashford story because you're going to get the same treatment. It's just contemptible rubbish.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And it was quite telling when the same day that they published the David Beckham story as well in the paper, where it was David Beckham should be up for a knighthood due to his charitable acts. I mean, but what's the difference? And they didn't. The headline wasn't "What a result!" Campaigning David Beckham owns Inter Miami Football Club. Do you know what I mean? Or when they talk about Jacob Rees-Mogg, Marcus Rashford pays 40% of his wages every single pay packet. 40% comes out of that. You look at someone like Jacob Rees-Mogg, who for 5 years hasn't paid any corporation tax on the money that his companies have made. Where's the Daily Mail headlines about that? It's just absolutely scandalous. Well, it's so obvious though, and that's the thing. It's like everybody predicted it, and still they went through with it. And I think they'll just get nastier and nastier. They'll start pulling out these so-called sources out of, where someone from fucking Wythenshawe who's never met Marcus or anything like that will come through with some sort of story. And then we'll talk about Mason Greenwood because he's been getting very similar sort of shots as well. And obviously a lesser profile figure, but the similarities are that the two black lads who are playing, who are doing really well at their careers, and that they're trying to take him down a peg or two. But I want to know what... If you're this story, that Marcus Rashford as a person has moved from back page news to front page news because of the heroic work he's done. But first and foremost, his day job as a footballer. Now, if you're Neil Ashton or Martin Samuel or any of the other Mike, is it Lawton who as well writes for the Daily Mail, and you're sports writers, do you have any conversation? You'll know more about this. Do you have any conversation with the rest of the newspaper? Because if I was Manchester United, and I said this a week about the Daily Mirror when they were targeting Mason Greenwood, saying his off the field behaviour, and it says, what wouldn't you just do what Fergie did and do a blanket ban on certain journalists or newspapers coming into the press office and into the press conferences?
Yeah, 100%, mate. I mean, Fergie used to rule with the iron fist. And I think I've told you a few tricks that Fergie used to do. I mean, he banned people for all sorts. He banned sports. He banned one when I was at Key, or just before I started, I think it happened, but he was sort of famous. He banned the sports journalist who he knew for something the DJs in the morning had said and done. And he'd do it in a way to humiliate you. And I love Alex Ferguson, I love him to bits. But he'd do things that he'd let him sit down. And then just as the press conference was about to begin, pointed him out and said, you can leave. You're on a 2-month ban. And you can ask them, I think he said, you can ask them clowns why, and they'll tell you, meaning the two DJs. Because this is over Beckham, funny enough, when Beckham got booted in the face with the boot. I think they'd gone down to the training ground with a photo of the bedsheet or something, opposed to saying, leave our Becks alone, just for some stupid publicity stunt. Fergie found out, went berserk, banned the reporter. And then obviously you've got to get up in front of everyone, walk to the front of the desk, pick your recorder up and leave your Marantz or your voice recorder. Completely humiliating, horrible. Yeah. But that was how Fergie was, and he ruled with iron fist. He banned Daniel Saylor, I think, from The Guardian for printing something about Rio that was true. That about him being injured, and he was the Northwest reporter for The Guardian who got on with Fergie. Fergie snapped and banned him, I think, for a few years. So Fergie ruled with iron fist. Ollie could approach it like that. He could say, you know what, I'm not fucking having it. Daily Mail, sling it. Or he could put pressure on him and, he could address it. He could call him out. Fergie used to like to call out journalists as well. You've seen that famous video where he literally calls out all of them. He says, your job is to tell the truth. And if you can't do that, you need to get in another job. Or you need to do another job, whatever it is. So, he could do that route. I know times have moved on. But I just think that if I was just, like you said about the connection between the sports desk and the news desk, there is a connection there. And I'd be very surprised if, the sports desk weren't really? Do you know what I mean? Why are we doing this? Do we want to be doing this? If you're a sports reporter at Daily Mail, one thing you would love to do is have a sit-down interview with Marcus Rashford. Is that ever going to happen now? Are you going to get a sit-down interview with anyone from Manchester United now? They can let you in a press conference. They don't have to ban you. But then they could do a one-to-one interview with the Telegraph or with the Guardian or with the Mirror, and you can just get left out of that. And that's not banning you. We had it once at City. I went to City. I used to do press conferences there, unfortunately. And there was a time when Pep Guardiola had to go at the referees. I think it was in his first season at City. And there was a game where there'd been a lot of fouls against his team. And he criticised, I think he'd said something like the referees aren't looking after the players or something along those lines. Anyway, the next press conference, there was loads of questions about referees, one after the other. Oh, what do you think about referees in this country? Are they not as good as Spain? Why? What do you think needs to be done about officiating? And he was sort of backtracking or trying to swerve it. He was because he didn't want to get drawn into that sort of debate. And I forget her name. I think her name's Vicky something. And she's the head of media. She'd come down from City and she watched the press conference. And after it, she called us all to one side and she said, I'm not having this. I'm not having him getting question after question about referees. And she said, if this was that lot down the road, meaning United, you'd all be on a ban. He'd have fucking banned you. Even though it wasn't Fergie anymore. It was obviously, I think it was Jose at the time. So I think she was inferring Fergie. and she said, I was going to arrange for a meal with him for you lot, one meet or some one-on-one time or a meal or whatever, or a count of drinks or whatever, and I'll cancel that if this shit doesn't stop. So there's that approach you can say. I mean, I took no notice of it. I wasn't really asked about going for a dinner with Pep Guardiola, and I don't think I'd have been invited anyway. But, that you can have that approach of, okay, if you're going to be like that, we're not necessarily going to ban you, but you ain't getting anything out of us.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But I think I've personally, maybe I'm a bit naive, I think more than that, the Daily Mail will publish whatever as long as it gets clicks. But if certain advertisers stop advertising with them, if certain people just call it out and say, I'm not fucking bothering with that paper anymore, if there's like a massive pushback in that respect, then maybe they'll rethink it. And I think, Marcus Rashford is the golden boy in a minute, and maybe you're just prodding the wrong tiger.
Yeah. Read the room, but do you really think that that's going against the Daily Mail readership? Do you know what I mean? Would you not say that the Daily Mail readership is by and large right wing anyway, that would like to see a person of colour who's saving young lives across the country being brought down a peg or two?
Yeah, of course it is. But could you argue that Marcus is almost crossing that divide a little bit? I agree that the Daily Mail, you sort of think of Daily Mail reader as being a Brexit voting white gammon, for want of a better expression. But that's what a lot of people may think. But, you look at the amount of clicks the Daily Mail get. A lot of people read that newspaper. And a lot of people that are white working class people are people that Marcus Rashford's helping or trying to help.
Yeah.
So is there a sort of bit where people go, and a lot of them are England fans as well. Raheem Sterling's a prime example. A lot of England fans just had enough of it. I'm like, actually, I'm not a City fan. I'm not even an England fan, really. I watch them in the major tournaments, but I didn't watch them. They're on tonight. I didn't even watch it.
Yeah.
But I was like, this has got to fucking stop with Raheem Sterling. This is just getting ridiculous. And it's obviously racist. Because, you look at the treatment Phil Foden got for buying his mum a house and look at how Raheem Sterling got treated. It's, the same story, like you did with the Beckham one. The same story, but treated completely different because of you think because of the complexion of the skin. So I think that while you might have a point that the Daily Mail is catering to its audience with this sort of stuff, I think that even its audience is a lot of them will be like, really? Some of them will be happy with this, and some of them already like quote tweeting and saying this is great. He's on millions of pounds and he expects us to whatever. But there'll be a lot of people out there who think, hang on a minute, look at how many people got behind his campaign.
Yeah,
millions of people got behind it. Some of them will read the Daily Mail. Are they all going to go, Marcus is, out of order? Do they not know that Marcus Rashford earns lots of money? Of course they do. So I don't know. I might be naive, and I think the Daily Mail is my thoughts on the Daily Mail. We've spoken about it many times. I have a lot of respect for a lot of journalists, but I don't have a lot of respect for the Daily Mail at all. I don't have any respect for it. I think they just cater to the lowest common denominator. They try and fuel division and hatred throughout this country. And you only have to look at their treatment of Meghan Markle as a prime example of the racist undertones of that newspaper. How the way they treat her compared to Kate is a prime example, even the same stories. So I think the Daily Mail is that kind of paper, but I think that because of the reaction he might get and because there's so many people that are buying into what Marcus is doing, can see what this is about, that might be the way that stops him. And I think from a United point of view, just keep him at arm's length and just give him short shrift and just let him know that, we're not having it. I mean, don't forget, I think Klopp banned the Sun, but I don't think he banned the Sun because of Hillsborough. I think he banned the Sun because of a story they'd ran on one of the players. I might be wrong, forgive me if I'm wrong, but, the Sun only got banned from Liverpool press conferences recently, and their coverage of Hillsborough, their awful coverage of Hillsborough was obviously, 30 years ago. So, it might have been a combination of things, and that might have been the straw that broke the camel's back. So again, forgive me if I'm wrong. But the point is, you can ban a newspaper, you can take action against a newspaper over anything if that's the way you want to go. And, the minute Ollie or whoever, or Karen Shotball, whoever's in charge of the media might be like, you know what, we're not going to ban him, but when it's time for the one-to-ones or the sit-down interviews or the exclusives, they're on the naughty step.
Yeah, I mean, you make a lot of good points there. And when you were talking about it being racist, say undertones, was that your line? Racist undertones in the rhetoric and stuff. we've mentioned this before. If does social media at some point not need to take a hold of this, where newspapers seem to have a bit more free reign with what they can put out for clickbait purposes? Because, and we'll touch on Mason Greenwood now, bring that story into it, because it has got racist undertones. It is toxic. It is creating division. If me or you or fucking Tommy Robinson or whoever that witch, was it Katie Hopkins, when they're doing certain things to that are creating division and stuff, they get banned from social media. So why do newspapers seem to get a little bit more leg room in terms of what they can put forward for stories, even though they're bullshit?
I think they're very clever in some of it. If I say Marcus Rashford spends a load of his money on bling, that isn't overtly racist, but it's got racist undertones.
Yeah.
Because, do you know what I mean? Using the word bling, or if I say, Raheem Sterling splashes the cash for, blinged up gaff or whatever, again, you're going, okay, yeah, there's a racist, but it's not overt. Do you know what I mean? And you got to remember with the Sterling thing, to go back to that, because there was so many. I think it was, I can't remember who it was, might have been Piers Morgan or some other idiot on Telly defending it. And what he did was he took each story and defended it one by one. But you're missing the point there. The point is, Raheem Sterling goes shopping at Poundland. Raheem Sterling buys his mum a house. Raheem Sterling, cheats on his girlfriend or whatever. Or not cheats on his girlfriend. I don't think that was his story, sorry. But they worded it like, love. I think they called him Love Rat. Love Rat Raheem Sterling marries his girlfriend or whatever. Now, one of those stories on its own, you might go, well, okay, that's newsworthy. And this is what Piers Morgan was trying to do. But when you do it collectively, it's it's a campaign, it's harassment, it's targeted harassment. And it's a smear campaign, and it's that the language used in that is different than you use to a white person or, to someone you weren't trying to have a dig at. And in answer to your question, obviously a long-winded answer, but I think they're very clever. I think sometimes it's difficult to push that and say, right, this is, when Kate Hopkins got a ban, I think, for saying about, I think she said something about the final solution or something like that. I can't remember. That was one ban she got. I think she got another one. I think you have to be sort of almost like blatant, do you know what I mean, to push that. And especially for a newspaper, which obviously brings in revenue and it's got a lot of powerful lawyers and things like that. I think you've got to really prove it that beyond any sort of doubt that this is overtly racist. So that might be why Twitter or whoever has an issue around that. I mean, we know that Facebook's rife and riddled with far-right articles and comments, and we've seen Zuckerberg getting his feet held to the fire by AOC in Congress about it, how, you had like far-right publications that were being sort of verified on Facebook. It was a joke. So that's a different thing. But on Twitter, I mean, I think one thing with Twitter for me recently, don't want to go too much off topic here, but it's just been the Trump tweets, the little thing at the bottom of him saying, this is disputed or whatever. The guy's inciting violence almost at the minute. Well, not almost, he is. He's got people on the streets and he's tweeting out calls to arms, and they're like letting him get away with it, just putting a little disclaimer. Well, if that was me or you, I know we're not the president of the United States, but surely the president of the United States should be held to the same standard as two Mancunians sat in the bedroom or whatever. Not to a lower standard, if not a higher standard.
He should be setting the example that we should be held.
Yeah, if we did that, to our thousands of followers, would get a ban. He does it to his almost 100 million followers and just gets a little note underneath saying this may not be true. I mean, I think they've got to get a grip of things like that. So, yeah, I'm always a bit skeptical of censoring the media. You have to be wary of that, because I don't want us to get into this sort of 1984 Pravda state where, you can't say free speech is important and you are able to say that. But when it crosses the line into hate speech, then that has to be addressed.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's something we'll go back to time and time again. But like I said, this just seems like the first shot fired towards Marcus Rashford, unfortunately. But he does seem to have the will of the country behind him, which is obviously rubbing them up the wrong way. Did you want to go straight into Mason Greenwood and the treatment of them? Because that seems absolutely abhorrent. Mason Greenwood has been suffering sort of mental health issues in regards to his friend committing suicide. And he's a young lad, and the pressures that comes with that anyway, of being a 19-year-old lad, we've both gone through that as teenagers. That's a hard time in life, but having the weight of being a Manchester United player on there, going away to England duty and getting caught with a couple of girls with Phil Foden, which was a mistake. I'm pretty sure he owns up to that. And now he's being targeted left, right, and centre by not just the Daily Mail, but across the board, saying that he's going to be the next Ravel Morrison, all the talent of the world, and he's throwing it away. And again, it just seems to be similar to the Marcus Rashford way they're targeting him, and it's hard not to see anything but having the sort of racial undertones when you look at the likes of Phil Foden. Doesn't get, like for like, they're both local lads to Manchester, and they do not get the same sort of tarnished in the newspapers.
No, you're right. I mean, you look at the way they both got caught breaking those rules. Phil Foden, who's got a missus and a child, sort of gets a free pass. Mason, they drag out some old story about him doing balloons, call it hippie crack, to put Mason Greenwood and crack in a headline. Then you have this thing, recently I said this thing, Jeremy Whiston took his own life, he used to play for Manchester City. Mason Greenwood apparently was friends with him and was like him. Someone posted, we've had a couple of posts on Stretford Paddock that he's liked, and someone, Ronaldo wrote a great piece about him. Ronaldo was obviously a young footballer himself. He was at Liverpool for a spell and then Oldham. He wrote a piece about getting off his back, and Mason Greenwood liked it. We did another post about just let him get on with his football like that. And someone else did a post, I think it was I forget the name of the site on Instagram, where they said about, he's just lost his friend to suicide. And he liked that. And that's when people are like, maybe, he's struggling. So maybe he needs a bit of support and being given a bit of a break from the spotlight. And then we've seen, I think it was Steve Bates in the Mirror, the Sunday Mirror, who's written this article you've just mentioned there, saying about how he could be the next Ravel Morrison. I think Rio and a few others have called this out, and obviously us as well, yourself and myself, and just like, what are you doing? Why are you writing this drivel? The guy's struggling. He's a young kid, as you mentioned. He's 19 years old. Fucking hell, man. He's 19 years old. He's got, he's just lost his mate. Most 19-year-olds, teenagers, don't experience that sort of loss. I certainly, I don't think I lost anyone when I was that young, of my age. Anyway, so he's going through all that, and there's all this speculation. There was a story about someone getting arrested for rape the other day, and people were speculating that was him when it wasn't. That was doing the rounds of social media, and I have my skepticism on why the Mail didn't put that the perpetrator was in his 20s until after the story had been running for a little while. But that's a different thing. You know what I mean? Maybe that's just me being cynical that they thought to let it go out there for a little bit before they proved it wasn't him, because he's obviously 19 years old. But okay, I can't prove that. We can just make our own minds up on that one. And then you've seen this sort of drivel. Listen, I don't know Ravel Morrison, but I've met him a few times, and I watched the youth team when he was in it. Probably the best team. I'm not just saying this, Scotty, for a fact, right? I've watched the academy team on and off for the last 30 years. I remember going to watch the academy team when Mark Bosnich was in goal for us and Giggsy was playing. And Ravel Morrison was probably the single most talented youngster I've ever seen play for the academy team. And I mean that. I know that sounds like fuck off, Jay. It's bluster. You're just saying that to make it. I'm not. The kid was amazing. And he was in a team with Pogba, he was in a team with Lingard, in the team with the Keane brothers and players like that who were very talented. And he just stood out, man. He was just like this. He's got everything. He's just amazing. And he just tossed it off. He's not. He's from like Urmston, Stretford way. If you know a few people that know him, I used to bump into him now and again. He's a sound lad. You meet him, he's right. He's just surrounded by people that have just led him down the wrong path. And I think he's got like ADHD or something as well. He just, he's one of them. Just his career didn't work out at all. And he got himself in a lot of trouble. He was in trouble with the police. He had various clubs and all sorts going on. To compare Mason Greenwood to him is just ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? It just is. It's just there's no comparison there whatsoever. Do you know what I mean? It's like just they're so far removed from one another. What happened there? Do you know what I mean? It's like saying, the kid the footballer that I don't know likes us had a shandy is the next Gaza or whatever.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, is it? Like,
it's just a young black Manchester United player, and that is the only comparison.
Of course it is, and he sells papers, he gets clicks, and I think that the journalist in question needs to take a step back and say, you know what, I shouldn't have done this, or I shouldn't be doing articles like this, because we can see the kid is liking posts about his friend's suicide. He's obviously got a lot going on. He obviously needs a bit of support. And sometimes as a journalist, you have to step back and say, you know what? Do I need to run this story? Do I need to write this story? And the answer isn't always yes. And I think people like Rio and others have called it out. Gary Neville called it out as well. And I think rightly so. And I think it just like the Marcus Rashford one, but for different reasons. This is more sinister. This is more, they're both shit and they're both awful stories. But this is really serious because here's a kid who's really struggling, going through a lot, and you're trying to stick the knife in. And you should be fucking ashamed of yourselves.
Definitely. It is nothing short of bullying. And I agree with you what you were saying regarding the Daily Mail's adding in his 20s later on. Because I got WhatsApps earlier on that day from a mate, and he sent me a picture of the headline before it said 20s, saying, who do you think it is? Do you think it's Mason Greenwood? And I said, fuck off, I can't see it. It's not. And then I went back onto the Daily Mail website and noticed that it had actually changed. And, you know, Steve Bates actually tried to interview me and you. Do you remember, Jay?
Sorry?
Steve Bates actually tried to interview me, you, Darren and Nathan when we were in Brazil for the World Cup.
Was that him?
Yeah, I can remember because we wanted to run a story because we were all all our misses were expecting, weren't they, around the same time and stuff, and we'd all pissed off to Rio. Yeah, it was he wanted to run a story on us, but because one of the lads who was with us wasn't sure whether he was going to stay with the baby mum or he decided not to, but that's a whole other story altogether. But I've lost a friend. I lost a school friend, Kevin, when I was 18 to suicide. He unfortunately got hooked on drugs and stuff. And like I said, it's fucking being that age anyway is absolutely terrible. Time to get through. You got all your hormones and emotions, but just to know that you've lost a mate and someone that you're growing up with, who's no longer going to be there, and trying to put that into some sort of logic is almost impossible. So my heart goes out to Mason. I was struggling with that, and it does need the support. And it's like we were talking before last week when David Simon was saying that sometimes he was more proud about the stories that he didn't print because he didn't think it was right to do that than the ones that he actually did. And Steve Bates needs to be fucking ashamed of himself.
100%. Couldn't agree more, mate. Do you know what I mean? Listen, one day we'll all be dust, but these stories will be there. That's your legacy. That's what you've done. That's what people will see you as, and people remember you, man. Is that how you want to be remembered? You know, we might chat some absolute wibble on here about Queen Latifah as Hitler or whatever, but you know, if my grandkids ever look at these videos or these podcasts, I won't be ashamed of them. I won't be ashamed to say, you know, these were our thoughts and this is what we sort of chatted about, or the points we make, or our ideals or whatever. Is that how you are remembered? You know, that kid who was struggling with his mate's suicide. This is the story I wrote on him. Come on.
Yeah, it's just an embarrassing weekend for journalists. Last week we got rid of almost seeing the back of Donald Trump, and this week it seems that Dominic Cummings is out the door at number 10 as well, which seems to be a bit of a bizarre breakup that no one was sort of expecting. But you know, the blind man from Barnum Castle is no more.
See the fucking picture out the front door of his box.
Yeah,
is this fucking Bridget Jones's Diary or something? What are you doing? Like,
did you not think Seven? The first...
Oh yeah, fucking Carrie Simmons' head in there or what?
What's in the box?
Yeah. Well, no, yeah, I didn't even fucking think of that until you mentioned it. Yeah, you want to check that because you won't put it past him. He's a horrible man, isn't he? But I didn't see this one coming, to be honest with you. Pardon that wasn't a pun, I just didn't. And it's like a nice surprise because I think he's been the architect of a lot of the shit show we've seen in this country over the last 3 years or whatever it's been since the Brexit vote. You know, he's been behind a lot of it. He pushed through. He was behind the Leave campaign, which was obviously successful, which I think was a massive mistake. Then he joins the government as Boris Johnson's advisor, which seems to take on more than an advisory role, and almost like he's de facto prime minister, almost running the country from behind the scenes, with a far right agenda. And I think that whilst it's great that he's gone, and I'm glad to see the back of him, my only sort of worry is who's pulling the strings now, because Boris Johnson he ain't got the ability to. I don't think he's got the desire to, really. I think he'd rather just sort of, be the face of the government, the actual brains of it. The sort that Carrie Simmons is doing. I don't know what her qualifications for running a country are. I'm not sure that she's got any. But it's just an absolute shambles. And, yes, we've got rid of one Muppet who needed to go, but is he just being replaced with another one?
That's the thing. A lot of people were celebrating Dominic Cummings going. I just wanted to get your opinion on a few things. Like, first and foremost, was he a success if you're a Tory voter? Do you think?
That's a very good point. Well, if you're a Tory voter, what do you want? One thing you want to be, you probably want to see the Tories in power. I'm going to throw it out there that maybe you were a Brexit voting Tory voter as well. So you could argue that, yeah, he's helped to push Brexit through and he's helped to get your party in power. But it's like, Alistair Campbell with the Labour Party. Was Alistair Campbell a success if you're a Labour voter?
Yeah, it's a good point.
I don't think he was.
But you didn't see Alistair Campbell in the press half as much as you did Dominic Cummings. And that was my second point as to why do you think that was? Because ever since the whole him driving up to Durham to get his eyes tested, he's become this sort of pantomime villain. Everyone sort of knew what he was doing in the background following the sort of Brexit films that were on Channel 4. But during this whole pandemic, he seems to have been the villain at the forefront of it. But not a lot changes immediately, does it? By him going, not from a non-Tory supporting person. Anyway, not that I can see. And like you said, if he's not driving, and then you've got fucking Mr. Bean in charge of the car, I mean, where does it off a cliff?
Well, I think the only difference now is we might be driving off a cliff by accident. Where with Cummings, we were driving off a cliff on purpose. I think that's the only fucking difference. I think he was taking his country down a route that I wasn't particularly fond of. And I think that we might end up going down a similar-ish route anyway. The only question is now, with the whole Brexit thing, a lot of people are sort of almost disowning Brexit and sort of trying to step away from it. It's changed as well with what's changed in the White House. You've got a very a more pro-European, I should say, president coming in. You haven't got this, special relationship between Boris Johnson and Joe Biden, the way you did with Donald Trump and Boris Johnson, where they were, of a similar ilk in terms of their views and they seem to get on quite well. That's gone out the window. So I don't know. Again, I keep using the word naivety with me when it's certain things, but I just think if you try to boil it down to the sort of essence of it, you've just got rid of a really detestable, hypocritical, just nasty piece of work out of the government who was almost running the show despite being unelected. And I just think when you boil it down to it, am I glad about that? Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
Do I have confidence that things are going to get a lot better anytime soon? No, I don't. But if you ask me, would I rather he stayed or he went? I'd rather he went. I'd rather he had gone after the Barnard Castle thing that you mentioned there. Should have been the end of him. That should have been it. He should have gone then. Instead, they give him a fucking press conference where they line up journalists like it's an X Factor audition to ask him the same questions over and over again, which he just dodges over and over again without any satisfactory answers. Then you get a list of cabinet ministers tweeting out support for him, including the Attorney General, including the Chancellor, including the Prime Minister, all showing their support for him and saying he was looking after his children shouldn't be a crime. Mate, if I can't see and I get in a car with my kids, I want locking up, not crediting by the Prime Minister. It's a fucking joke.
Very well put.
We're going for a drive, kids. I can't see, but don't worry, we'll see my eyesight perks up on the way down the motorway.
In fact, you sit in my lap because your eyesight's better.
You do the gear stick.
Yeah. Okay.
Fucking hell.
But I mean, the comparisons with what we were talking about, Donald Trump previously and Dominic Cummings, I think it's the fatigue that's come with the countless, maybe not tweets from Dominic Cummings, but the press, everything that came out. Like we were talking about Alistair Campbell, everyone knew that what his job was, but he was very much behind Tony Blair, and that it was, it wasn't at the forefront, was it? But as much as Dominic Cummings was always in the papers, and Donald Trump's always on Twitter. So it'll be a relief from that point of view. But again, with my sort of pessimism about things changing in America anytime soon, I just I can't see anything happening anytime soon and positive changes in Parliament, especially with this Brexit vote that one day we're getting a deal, the next day Boris isn't getting a deal, and it's just missing no Ledmans. It's just absolute, I'm not too sure where we are.
I wonder whether this is this could be the beginning and the end for Boris.
Really,
I just think that when you weigh it all up, he hitched his wagon to that star with Cummings, didn't he? Gave him a lot of power, a lot of say, and a lot of ministers won't have been happy about that because this guy's coming in, he's telling you what to do. He's not elected. He's almost come not from nowhere. I think he had connections to Michael Gove and others as well. But he's sort of ruling the roost. And then Brexit's turning into a shambles that we all knew, but it's a shambles. Then you've got a prime minister who just seems detached from it all, who, he just seems vacant. I know he's not, he had COVID. I think he's isolating again because someone he knows has got COVID or somebody's been around has got COVID. He's not really leading. The polls aren't great. And if you're a Tory, this is the party of backstabbers. Don't forget this. They love a good backstabbing. Let's not forget how Johnson got into Downing Street. It was literally fucking him and Gove backstabbing Cameron, then Gove backstabbing Johnson that ended Johnson's first bid, then them both backstabbing Theresa May, which ended Theresa May's fucking premiership. Then now it's Johnson on there. So who's going to backstab him? Do you know what I mean? There's already talk of maybe Rishi Sunak could be the next prime minister. Don't see it. Don't see the Tories appointing an Asian guy as their prime minister because I think there's just too many of them are secretly racist. But I might be wrong. So I just don't know. I think that, and especially when you look at it now, you've got the prime minister's baby mother calling the shots.
I know.
I'm all for women's lib, and I'm sure she's a very intelligent young girl, or young woman. But really, is that how you run a government?
No.
Do you know what I mean? My girlfriend, she's going to be telling the country what we're doing now. Oh, really? Okay, yeah. You've been in been in politics long, has she? A bit. Right, okay, yeah, seems legit.
I love my wife, Jay, but she comes in here telling me how to do this podcast. We're in trouble. So...
Mate, at least you don't get this. So I have to pull with.
Right, let's go stateside. Dickie Donald Trump is not giving up. He's come out again today with tweets saying that he will not go quietly. This is a fraud. Nobody should be surprised at this, really, should they? He was never going to go quietly. How is it going to play out? Are the Secret Service going to have to go in and get him screaming and dragging like a drunk at 2 o'clock in the morning out the back of the Ritz?
There was the first sort of semi-admission on his press conference yesterday. Was it on Friday or Saturday? I forget, where he said the next administration, whoever that, I think he said something like whoever that may be or whatever, or the next president, or he said something along those lines where he didn't say, when my administration, it was like whoever it is, whether it's me or Biden, in other words. And then there was the tweet today, which began by, he won, meaning Biden, because of this, because of the fraud or whatever, which was a kind of admission that, okay, you won. Although you might say he did it fraudulently, which is what he's claiming. So there's kind of been these little signs that, not that he's accepting it, but maybe that he's coming to the realization that he ain't going to be in the Oval Office come the 20th of January or whenever it is. There's also getting a lot of pushback now because I saw Dr. Fauci on his CNN earlier, and he was asked a perfectly good question by Jake Tapper, who often does ask good questions. Well, always does ask good questions, I should say. He said, would it be better in terms of healthcare if President-elect Biden or Joe Biden's team had full access for the transition right now? And he said, yeah. He said, from a healthcare perspective, of course. So, it's costing lives, this delay, this pretense, this nonsense that Biden hasn't won, because they're not letting Biden's team and his transition team have access to the data, to the healthcare, to the coronavirus sort of stats. I saw one of the Surgeon Generals saying, well, they're all in the public domain. They're not all in the public domain. There's certain things that about research and stuff and the numbers that the public can't get access to, that that only the White House has. So there's little things going on. I think the only way to get Donald Trump or to concede, before the inauguration is you've got to sell it to him. You've got to give him an out. And I think his out it'll be two things. It'll be one, that it'll be a case of, if you leave, you can run again in 2024 and you can start fundraising for that, and you can do that for the next 4 years. That can just be a campaign towards 2024, which I think he'll want to do. And I think the fundraising element will appeal to him because he can make lots of money. And also, if you sort of say to him, listen, you ain't going to win this, you ain't going to win these legal challenges, it's just not going to happen. But if you leave and say, okay, I won, but because it's a rigged election, because everyone's against me, I'm never going to get my fair hearing, so I'm going to, for the good of the country, leave.
Sure.
Then you can at least paint yourself as the hero who, despite being cheated, left. Now, we all know that's bollocks, but you've got to approach it as though you would, a 2-year-old getting him to fucking eat his tea or whatever. Just, convince him, here you go. This is how it's done. Do you know what I mean? Because he's a complete man baby.
You've got to hide the peas in the mash. That's the talent there,
Exactly, mate. Exactly, my friend.
I mean, but that's to suggest that Donald Trump has the country, has the United States at his heart, when it's not really. It's all been a massive ego play, hasn't it? I mean, obviously this behaviour, he knows that it's costing lives in how he's behaving. So for him to start, to do that, surely that would be, he'd have to have some sort of self-awareness. So from what I'm reading, I think I know where you're going to come back with, but from what I've read, isn't he doing a lot of damage for the Republican Party anyway? Aren't they sort of distancing themselves anyway? Would they really want him to run again, knowing that he'll be nearly 80?
You read what you sow. I don't think they will want him to run again, because a lot of them themselves will want to run. I think that Ted Cruz would probably want to run again. I think that Mike Pence has probably put up with a lot of this shit over the last 4 years as vice president. And I'm not a big fan of Mike Pence at all, but he's, I think he's at least saner than Donald Trump. But I think he'd probably want to have a run at it in 2024. Maybe the likes of Rubio or whatever will have another crack. I'm not sure where they are politically at the minute. But he got 70 million votes, whatever it was, Donald Trump. He's got a massive base and they love him. And they're Republicans by and large. So the Republican Party is skeptical of alienating them. So if you say you're a Ted Cruz and you come out and you go, Trump's just chatting absolute nonsense, man. This guy has lost it. You lose that core, because then Trump says he's one part of the establishment. He's gone against me. He's undermining your vote. They turn against him. It's difficult coming back to that. And on your other point, I get where you're coming from about, does Trump have the good of the country? Would he care? You'd have to sell it him as though he doesn't. But for him personally, it's beneficial to say he does. Right. So to pretend that you're doing this for the country, so you can run in 2024 and start fundraising right now. And also, you ain't going to win these legal battles. It's impossible. Like, had it been one state like it was in 2000, then yeah, when it was a recount, you've got what is it, 306 to 232? So you need to flip 3 states, I think. And these states, they're in like the tens of thousands, some of them in margins. A recount usually changes a hand, 300 or 400 votes at best, or maybe 1,000 tops. The recount margins are way beyond that. And then you look at legal challenges, you pushing custard uphill if you think you can flip 3 states like legally with no evidence. You're dragging out just lunatics they've been putting on like Fox News. That woman who said, I saw a van and it said it was delivering food, but it wasn't big enough to be delivering food for everyone. What's that? And he put her on air. I saw a van that was delivering food, but it weren't big enough to delivering food. What food was it meant to be delivering? And how do you know it weren't big enough for that? And what's that got to do with anything? What are you on about? Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't have even interviewed her if I was working for the fucking Salford Advertiser, and they put her on the on air on a nationally, a globally syndicated news network, and it's like even the presenters looking, thinking, "What the fuck am I meant to do with this?"
Can you imagine the producer that's had to find someone running down the street and she's the one they go for with a really good political view? What she goes, Food in vans. I don't know. We'll go with it. We'll go.
I saw a van. Oh, there was the one where they had the footage of them with bags delivering votes. And I think it was the LA County Council came out and said, yes, that was one of our vans delivering the votes. That's what they're meant to do. That's the legitimate way we do it. What? Like, what are you on about? Look at these people here counting votes. Look at him voting. Remember the women they thought were dead? They said that these dead people have voted, and they weren't dead. They were just very old. She was 96, but she'd voted. Because she'd been on the voter register for like 80 years or whatever, they thought she was dead. And she was like, no, I'm not dead. I've just voted. And I voted against Trump because I fucking hate him.
Okay. Oh, man. The saga continues.
So bad.
It shall. I'm sure it's going to carry on, mate, up until Christmas. Maybe it'll go just over Christmas and we can all be self-isolated at home, having a sherry or a non-alcoholic beer for me and you.
Ew.
Have you heard this? There's been like on a really side note. My nana's been poorly, but she likes drinking Guinness, so I've been dropping cans of Guinness round to cheer her up. And she goes, I can't have Guinness anymore. I said, why? She goes, because there's poison in it. It's like someone's poisoning Guinness, and I thought like the medication's fucking kicking her in, and she thinks there's some trial going on. Someone's been putting cyanide or whatever in Guinness, but apparently like the non-alcoholic Guinness now is that to have callbacks because of how it has got poisoning. Apparently,
non-alcoholic Guinness.
Yeah,
really?
Yeah. Apparently so. You don't drink non-alcoholic anything, do you?
No, mate. No, like I tried. I've tried it. I've tried like Caliber years ago, and I think I tried Beck's Blue once, but no, it's not for me, mate. I never drank beer because I like the taste. I just used to like getting levered. But Pepsi Cherry Max, me all the way, kid. That's me. And Guinness, I tried that once and I hated it. So no, I'm not going to go for the non-alcoholic Guinness, especially if the poison on us as well. Bloody hell! Yeah. Double.
Anyway, that was a fun, nice tangent to end on. I've been Scotty. That's been Motty. You guys out there, subscribing, commenting. Thank you very much, and sharing with your mates. We love the feedback. Love this. How long have we been doing it now, Jay? Since June.
Yeah, it's been about 5 months, is it? 5 months, I think. And we've had a lot of, great people getting involved in the comments, lots of support, lots of encouragement, people asking us to talk about certain topics as well that we always try and do. And, like I say this every week, we do try and do these as often as we can, and we love doing them. We appreciate the fact that you guys have shown us a lot of love as well. It's, it doesn't go unnoticed.
No, it is very much appreciated. And I was thinking, I don't actually think I've seen you this year. I don't think I've seen you this year. But I still think I've seen you more this year than I have most years.
I think, me and you've got like a decade in the past where we haven't seen each other. And then it's been like we saw each other yesterday when we speak. Do you know what I mean? No, I don't think we've actually gone 10 years. We haven't gone that long. But no, I don't think we have seen each other this year. That's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've spent more time talking this year than we have since 2003.
The joys of the internet. Anyway, keep subscribing. Tell your mates, tell your nan. Don't buy Poison Guinness. There are alternative brands out there. Manscaping, if you are watching, we want that sponsorship. Scotty, Motty, see you soon.